We learned some new intel on the details, the nitty-gritty on the contract that he has agreed to. So if you didn't see the latest on this, I thought it was interesting. Maybe you missed it. Maybe you'll agree with me. Maybe not. Well, I'll tell you. So we have learned the Doyers included multiple opt-out clauses that would be activated if either the team's owner or GM leave the organization. Say what? Yes, Mark Walter, the Chicago guy who is the face of the Dodger ownership group. It's actually a investment fund that owns the Dodgers, but Mark Walter is the face of that, the Guggenheim Group. And the baseball ops wizard is Andrew Friedman. And Walter's been the owner of the team since 2012. Friedman was hired in 2014. He worked in Tampa Bay back in the day. So if either one of these executives say, la 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 la, la la la, hey, hey, goodbye, just like that, they'll sing. They'll actually sing the song that I just sang. So if either executive leaves the franchise at some point during Shohei Ohtani's deal, he will have the ability to opt out of his Dodger contract. So that means if Andrew Friedman gets a bug up his keister and decides he wants to leave the Dodgers at the end of the 2024 season, Ohtani's back on the market. It's a one-year contract. He's back on the market. So let us discuss the question, how does this latest wrinkle change the Shohei Ohtani deal with the Dodgers? So I've got briefcase, legalese, and Rosetta Stone. And we will combine all of these things together, and we are going to make some chicken parm. I just saw out of the corner of my eye a few seconds ago on one of the TVs we have in the studio. They had chicken parm, and I thought, boy, I haven't had chicken parm in a long time. I should get some of that.
Ooh.
Yeah. So listen, this is a game changer. This is a game changer, right? Changes the initial story a lot. The fanboy reporting that this is altruistic by Shohei Ohtani, and there were no special concessions, no special treatment given to Ohtani, that he is just such a stud muffin, Ohtani, that he's different than everyone else, and he just wanted to wait and all that stuff. Of course, we know that he was driven to defer the money because, yeah, it looks good, you can add some more players, but you also circumvent the California taxation, so you can avoid having to pay California taxes. That's why he did that. But he is getting special treatment. Whether you like Ohtani or not, he's getting special treatment. He's got an off-ramp from Stadium Way there. And I get the ownership part. Like, I don't really have an issue with that. I would think that it's kind of like in our business, we work in radio here, and when the boss changes, everything changes, right? So you're kind of tied to the person that hired you. Although so far I've survived a lot of different bosses that we've had here over the years. I didn't survive all of them. Back in 2009, I had a kick out the door, but that's a conversation for a different time. So I get, the point is, I get that Ohtani wants to stay with the Dodgers as long as Mark Walter is the face of the ownership group. Completely logical. I don't have a problem with that. But the guardrails have gone bonkers with the other part of the equation. The other part of the arithmetic seems just nuts to me. The Andrew Friedman clause is deranged. Insane to the membrane is what it is. Now, Andrew Friedman negotiated himself into the Teflon Don of the Dodgers. He's invincible. Think about it. What if he makes a bunch of bad trades all of a sudden? And everyone he signs blows. Doesn't matter. If you want to keep Ohtani, you got to keep Friedman. They're chained together at the hip. It's nuts. The Dodgers have forked over the briefcase that contains the nuclear codes to Shohei and Andrew Friedman in many respects. Right? Ohtani now wears the pants. He's in charge. It's wild. The power dynamic is nuts. Now, maybe it'll work out if they win World Series, and that's great. And already won the hardest World Series of all time in 2020. Now they can win some more. Stack those World Series on. But Andrew Friedman was able to negotiate, which is essentially, if I'm reading this properly, his own poison pill into the Shohei Ohtani contract. So what happens? Friedman's not locked up for the next 10 years. What happens? I don't know how many years he's got left on his contract. What happens when Andrew Friedman's negotiating his next deal with the Dodgers? How's that going to go? Things that make you go, yeah, that's a Jiminy Cricket situation. When you wish upon a star. Yes, whatever he wants. Blank check. It's a package deal. Ohtani and Friedman. It's wild. All right, now, page 2 here. Is there a downside? Is there a downside for Shohei Ohtani? We know the upside, right? The upside, he's in charge and all that. But is there a downside to these clauses that he's getting? So it's not all sunshine, rainbows, and lollipops and all that. If you look at the legalese, you got to read the legalese on these things. And nobody does that. But watch out for the law of unintended consequences, which is a really fancy way of announcing that unexpected things happen. Now, I tend to believe from time to time, not all the time, but I believe from time to time we are all living in a simulation. And there is a dimension, there's different dimensions to this simulation, and there is a dimension in the simulation involving Shohei Ohtani where he rides off the cliff, and that's it. He just can't play anymore. Under that simulation, how exactly would this work? So let's go down that avenue. And let's just say, between me and you, because we're the only ones here, let's just say that Shohei Ohtani never pitches again. He's had a couple of Tommy John procedures. The odds of him being a dominant pitcher are not great. The odds of him coming back and pitching are not at a high level, at a big league level, are not particularly good. So if Tommy John operation KOs Ohtani, the pitcher, and all you get is 4 or 5 at-bats as a designated hitter for Shohei Ohtani. That's all you get. And let's say as he gets older, he's almost 30, and you start aging and your production goes down. And that's true outside of the steroid era. Your production goes down, and in all sports. I'm just saying, I don't know. Other than LeBron James, he must be the unicorn. I'm sure he's not doing anything funny there at all. But anyway, back to the story. So Shohei Ohtani, let's say he starts hitting like 240 with 15 or 20 home runs. If you're the Dodgers here, in this particular simulation, you've got options now. Because let's just say there's some other phenom that comes up in a couple years from Japan who trumps Ohtani and is like the next big thing, and people stop buying Ohtani merch. The Tokyo ad market dries up because Ohtani's not playing very well anymore. So then, this is where it gets interesting. The Dodgers have the right to slip a pink slip to Andrew Friedman, play a game of poker, and call Ohtani's bluff. And be like, hey, we got rid of Friedman. Now, of course, if he's playing terribly, why would Ohtani opt out of the contract? But that is an option, right? Call his bluff. And bark, chicken, bark, chicken. Just like that. All right, last word. Headline from the land of Boras. Now, Scott Boras must be so upset. I've known Scott a little bit over the years. He must be furious that he does not have Ohtani. That's not his client, right? Boras always likes to strut around, do the pirouette and the catwalk. That he's the God's gift to agents, and he is. He's the greatest agent of all time. But the biggest contract of all time, Scott Boras had nothing to do. Ohtani's locked and loaded in L.A., and Scott Boras is worried about where Blake Snell's going to sign. Right? That's what we got going on. And so Boras chimed in on the status of the free agent market circa the offseason here of 2023 into 2024. And did you see what he said? The super agent, who, again, does not have Ohtani as one of his clients under his umbrella, is unhappy with the shopping. He does not like the economy in Major League Baseball. He said, well, this is outrageous. How can you possibly say that? They just gave a $700 million contract out in baseball. How could anyone complain? Well, Scott Boras found a way. He said, quote, he told The Athletic, quote, the market remains status quo, Boras bickered. No average annual value at or above $44 million. Clear evidence, Boras said, of a strategic and managed effort. That's the quote. Now, Boras declined to get specific on who he believed managed that effort, but As long as you have an IQ above 10, I think we know what he's getting at here. But I'll hope, for those of you in the back of the room, I want to help you out. Would you translate Scott Boras and his cryptic message of managed effort involving salaries in baseball? Can you translate that for the regular guy? Glad to help. Glad to be of service. I was a Cub Scout back in the day. So my Rosetta Stone, which is never wrong and translates what these people in sports say. My Rosetta Stone says that Scott Boras is convinced of the C word. Now, not the C word that'll get you slapped if you say it to women. Not that word. That the other word, collusion, right? He thinks there's funny business going on.
That's baseball.
Yeah. And Boras, when he used the word manage, that's a synonym for collusion. Right? He meant collusion, right? Collusion is the team's ownership group getting together and saying, we're not going to go over this number. We're colluding to go over that number. Now, proving collusion is very, very difficult. Now, you say it's not that hard in the digital age. Well, it still is. It still is. So he thinks Major League Baseball owners are in cahoots here, Boras, to not go over $44 million average annual salary. And by union calculation, Ohtani will be at $43.8 million. Present day value. That is higher than Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer, who's a Boras client, who are at 43.3. So it's a real sob story for Scott Boras. And really, ultimately, what Boras is doing here is he's clearing the debris field. I'm going to tell you what he's up to, because he's looking ahead. He's not worried about this offseason. The next big whale that he's got is in 2025. New York Yankee Juan Soto. And Scott Boras is laying the groundwork to get past $44 million. He'd like 45, 46, 47 million average annual salary for Juan Soto. So that's what this is. This complaining, but his real complaint is about next year, not this year.